US President Donald Trump is in Beijing for a high-stakes two-day visit and is set to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. Now, they are expected to discuss a range of thorny issues, including Tehran, Taiwan and trade. Trump's first official engagement will be an arrival ceremony with Xi at Beijing's Great Hall of the People. The two leaders will then hold talks. A state banquet is scheduled for the evening. He arrived for the summit on Air Force One late Wednesday night, accompanied by top administrative officials and several of the country's most powerful executives, including NVIDIA's Jensen Huang and Tesla's Elon Musk. He was given a red carpet welcome with 300 Chinese youth chanting welcome and waving Chinese and US flags as he descended the steps of the presidential plane, pumping his fist. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said it welcomes Trump's visit, adding that Beijing stands ready to work with the United States, expand cooperation and manage differences. But Trump is dealing with a different China to the one that he visited 9 years ago, with a host of unresolved trade and geopolitical tensions between the two countries. The Iran war in particular is to come up in US President's talks with his Chinese counterpart. Well, Trump on Wednesday said that he expected a long talk with Xi about Iran, which sells most of its US-sanctioned oil to China, but insisted that he doesn't think US needs any help with Iran from Beijing. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is accompanying Donald Trump on the China visit. He told Fox News that Washington wants China to play a more active role in pressuring Iran over escalating tensions in the Persian Gulf. Highlighting the impact on Chinese interests, Rubio said that several Chinese-linked ships remain stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, while one vessel was reportedly hit over the weekend. He added that it was in China's own interest to help de-escalate the crisis. Now, Taiwan, another issue that has strained ties, will come up for discussions. Trump said that he would speak to Xi about US arms sale to the self-governing democracy claimed by China. Now, that would be a departure from historic US insistence that it will not consult Beijing on its support for the island, and one which will be closely watched by Taipei and US allies in the region. However, China has already reiterated its strong opposition to the arms sale. And not to forget trade, the long-simmering trade war between the two countries will be, after all, top of the agenda after Trump's sweeping tariffs last year that triggered tit-for-tat levies that exceeded 100%. Trump and Xi are set to discuss extending a one-year tariff truce, which the two leaders reached during their last meeting in South Korea in October. Although a deal is far from certain. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is now joining us live from New York. Susan, we understand that the context has changed significantly from the last time that Trump visited Beijing to now. What do you think we can expect this time around?
Well, President Trump is going into this meeting, as is Xi Jinping, both men believing that they have the upper hand to a certain extent. And that could be true, actually, for both of them. But they also face many challenges. Of course, China faces the issue of energy security because of the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz and its fragile economy right now. Its economy isn't doing very well. But the United States also needs China in a lot of aspects. China has a trade surplus here in the United States, and President Trump says that trade is the number one issue on his mind, considering the fact that, American markets are open for Chinese goods. They have flooded the United States, but it hasn't been reciprocal. And with the president taking tech CEOs along with him, he hopes that will change and China will open its markets to more American businesses. But as you mentioned, the issue of the Strait of Hormuz is going to really play an important role in these discussions. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, just told Fox News that he believes it's to China's benefit to help and have some kind of mediation and mediating efforts to try to open the Strait of Hormuz, not only because of its energy, but because of the nature of its export economy. It really exports a lot of what it makes inside China to major countries, and the Strait of Hormuz plays a vital role. On the other hand, China plays the card of having a monopoly on certain rare earth minerals that are very important for America's technological advances. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not there will be any deliverables or any kind of statement after this meeting between the two most powerful economies of the world. One can't bet on that, but I think the issue of Taiwan for China is very important. There were reports saying that Beijing wants stronger U.S. language opposing Taiwanese independence from President Trump. And it's hard to imagine that they will get that, considering the fact that it's very unlikely that the United States will walk away from a strategic ambiguity policy that it had against regarding Taiwan for so many years. But Taiwan could actually be a building block, perhaps anything regarding Taiwan, where the United States can get some concessions on from China regarding the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, this issue itself worries Taiwanese officials to a great extent.
Absolutely, Susan. And of course, the composition of Trump's delegation, this has also, grabbed a lot of attention. And this is especially the presence of major CEOs and tech executives. What does that tell us about, where U.S. priorities, lie in going into the summit this time around?
Yeah, on the one hand, both sides really want ultimately to reduce dependence on one another. On the other hand, you really can't underestimate the strategic competition that these two have. And with President Trump taking this delegation, on the one hand, it shows that ultimately these tech executives and the private sector in the United States at this point is really intertwined in America's geopolitical strategies and policies moving forward. This is very different from the Chinese ideology where everything is government controlled. And so bringing these tech executives, it opens the door for conversations, not only for America doing more business in China and finding it appealing, but on the other hand, it also shows that the road to AI ultimately may require collaboration from both sides, and who better than these quote unquote brilliant minds, as President Trump likes to call them, to really start that engine and find some kind of cooperation between the two sides. Very noteworthy that these individuals are going.
Absolutely, Susan. Will continue to track all the developments very closely. For now, thank you so much for getting us all those details. That was our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, joining us from New York.